Kristy has a PhD in public affairs with an emphasis on criminal justice and has spent some time as a college professor in Colorado and Florida. She speaks with authority on a number of subjects, which lends credence to her presentations of unexplainable evidence. And she has a love of historic preservation, which she put into some real action fairly recently. Kristy started History, Highways, and Haunts, LLC, with Miranda Young, aka Ghost Biker, which is headquartered in the old Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee, a location both ladies manage and where they host tours, events, and ghost hunts. And their video podcast, Jailhouse Informant, is there as well. Please welcome Dr. Kristy Sumner to the show. Yay!
How y'all doing tonight?
We are doing fabulous. How about you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good.
I know for Kelly and I, our favorite places to investigate have become these little county jails. So when we saw on Facebook that
not
you
just
and
because we're
Miranda
talking to you
had gotten your hands on the old Scott County Jail, we're like, we have a reason to go to Huntsville, Tennessee for sure. We definitely want to come visit you guys. Love to have you share a little bit about the history there, how you guys got involved with it, and what the things you have to offer there, the hauntings you have going on. We're just going to let you go and let us know about this place.
Well, this is actually a very interesting place. And the reason we got involved with this is, about 4 years ago, I met Miranda, Ghost Biker, from Ghost Biker Explorations. And I had been following her show, and she had been following Soul Sisters. We really didn't know it. But after her first season, I sent her an email and I said, hey, congratulations on your season. Best of luck in the next year. And so we started this email dialogue and we became fast friends. And so we started doing some collaboration investigations together. And we found out that we really had similar styles, right? She's very much into historic preservation and telling that historical story as we are. And so it really was one of those things where we just kind of jived. And so since we met, we've always kind of talked about finding a location and really going into that location and preserving it historically, but also setting up a paranormal research center. And a couple of years ago, her father passed. And so Scott County, which is where the jail is located, that's in her hometown. And so she started coming up to help, her mom with some things and just kind of starting taking care of helping her mother. And so she said, listen, I've got to spend more time in Scott County, but there's this jail in Huntsville in Scott County. It's sitting vacant. Nobody's been in it for years. Why don't we just ask the town if we can put our plan into action, right? And so we came up with a company called History, Highways, and Haunts, because what we want to do is we want to not just be the jail, but we want to lead tours to haunted locations, motorcycle events. We want to really make this a robust company, not just for paranormal. And so we decided to get a business plan in place. We put together numbers and facts and figures, and we approached the town of Huntsville and said, listen, this is what we want to do. This is what we think the outcome will be economically for the town. Will you allow us to do that? And they said yes. And so here we are. We're in the jail. The jail was built in 1904. It was in operation as a jail until 2008. And then it sat vacant until 2017, when the county of Scott County gave it to the town of Huntsville. And so Huntsville got a tourism grant to repaint and added some windows and added an air conditioning and heating system. And then it sat vacant again from 2017 till 2021, when Miranda and I came in and opened the museum. So what we really wanted to do was build a very robust crime and punishment museum, really highlighting Scott County crime, some interesting stories, because Scott County people, they do crime right here. So we've got crime stories going on. We've got interesting artifacts in here, everything from uniforms to jail uniforms to officer uniforms to shanks and shivs. And we really have collected those stories as well. We've got an audio tour that you can take, because we really wanted the history to be the front runner in what we're doing. And then after dark, we've got our after dark tours. We've got ghost walks. We've got guided ghost hunts where you can come in and do a ghost hunt with Miranda and myself. And we've got private paranormal investigations where investigators can rent the jail for a night. You get it from 8 o'clock or 8:30 at night to 3 in the morning. And I've got to say, when we first started, obviously, if you're opening a business like this, you're hoping and praying, please let there be spirit activity, just something. And this has exceeded expectations. Everything from disembodied voices to full-bodied apparitions to objects coming off the wall, whistling, humming has become very prevalent. As I said, door slamming, and it's any time of the day, right? You can be sitting here at 9 a.m. and you'll hear footsteps start walking up above you, or some man will start humming in your ear. And it's really probably the most intelligent location that I've been associated with, that I've been in, because you ask a question, an intelligent response will happen. And it's just one of those things that, I'm absolutely fascinated on a daily basis of what we've come up with here.
That is so cool. I wanted to ask too, because I don't know exactly how the jail is set up, but I know some of the county jails here, they had like half of it was the warden's house and then half of it was the jail. Is it kind of set up the same way there?
It is not now. It was when it was built in 1904. So from 1904 up until the mid 1960s, the jailer did live here. So the room that I'm in right now, which is now the booking room, this was part of the living room. And right across the hallway there, that was the jailer's quarters. There was a kitchen where the jailer's wife would routinely be the cook, and she would cook for the inmates, for the deputies, and anybody associated with the jail. So they did live here for, like I said, up until about the 1960s. After the 1960s is when they kind of moved out and they made that a sheriff's office. So when you go in there now, you'll see the big star and the linoleum on the floor. And so that they also used it as a women's cell because both men and women were housed here. So they used it as a women's cell at one point. Really just depending on the sheriff and the administration, the rooms changed for various things. There's a cell that's back here behind me that was used as an interrogation room at one point, but also the medical room where, you were hurt or whatever, they provide medical assistance there. And so it just kind of ranges. But a lot, it's really, as you go through it, there's just really layers of history, right? So you've got this room, it served this purpose up until this time, and then it just moved on. And there's so many interesting historical stories that have come out of this jail and out of this county. And it's almost like the jail wants to tell those stories and wants us to know the proper history. So I'll give you one example. In 1933, there was a guy by the name of Jerome Boyett, and just in a very general story, he ended up murdering a sheriff in the neighboring town. And so he went on the run, and eventually, for various reasons, he turned himself in here at the jail. And so he was up on the third floor, and a mob came through the jail, and they beat the jailer, and they went upstairs, grabbed Jerome Boyett and another inmate named Harvey Winchester, took him out, and they lynched him. So there's actually been 7 lynchings from this jail. So that's the two most well-known, Jerome Boyett and Harvey Winchester. So about 2 or 3 months ago, a gentleman here in the county wrote a book about that story. And so he gave us an advanced copy of the book. And so Miranda and I were looking through it. This was on a Saturday. So we were looking through the book right before a paranormal investigation team had come in to do an investigation. So the book is a factual book written from a fictional character's standpoint. So the character's name is Anvil Clemens. And so we're just kind of thumbing through it. And I'm like, oh, this is, interesting name, Anvil Clemens. So we throw the book down and forget about it, right? So the paranormal investigation team comes in, and they're having a great night. They're getting a lot of stuff. And so in the room right next to me, which is where the front door is, they had an obelisk, and the obelisk said anvil, anvil, anvil. They got anvil 3 times on the obelisk. And so they were a little intrigued by that. So when they were done with the investigation, Miranda was here. So they said, just a quick question, what does anvil have to do with the jail? Anything? And she's like, well, it's funny you say that because we just got an advanced copy of this book, and a character's name is Anvil in the book. And so she's like, well, I'll talk to the author. So the next day she called the author and said, why did you name that character Anvil? And because this happened. And he said he went white as a sheet. And he said, The reason that he named the character Anvil is because when the mob came in to get Jerome Boyett, they beat the jailer so badly that somebody said it looked like he had been beaten by an anvil. So his nickname for the rest of his life was Anvil. We never knew that. Wow. The only person who knew that was the author, because it's his great-great-grandfather.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah. So it literally, the jail told us that story. So, and now, I mean, that's a story that we share, because it's interesting that the jail has told us that story.
That's really incredible. I love that. So we've had some interesting comparisons that we've done. What is your solitary confinement there? What is it like?
Well, we've got two of them, actually. So right behind me, right behind this wall right here, we've got two cells that were originally built as drunk tanks. And so if you were drunk and they didn't actually want to arrest you, they just wanted you to sleep it off, they'd throw you in there. One is complete cinder block with a big steel door, no windows, completely dark. The other one, it does have a window with the bars, obviously, but you go in there. That also doubled as the solitary confinement cells. So if you were unruly on the maximum security level, they would bring you down and throw you in there for however long by yourself. There's also, up on the maximum security level, there is one cell that has one bed. It's the only cell that has one bed. And that was what they call administrative segregation. So that essentially was their solitary confinement. While it's close to another cell, so you can still kind of interact with people. If you were let out of that cell, you were in the what we call the bullpen by yourself, and in that cell by yourself.
Gotcha. And that sounds actually much more pleasurable than most of the ones we've been around and what we've seen, especially a squirrel cage that was barely even tall enough for you to stand inside.
Yeah, basically you just had to stand in it.
Oh,
and
wow.
It could be
and the door would close up on you.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
No.
I always love these stories about the wards who had their houses there, that lived on the property, because you think about, it was always the wife who had to take care of all of the cooking and the laundry and stuff like that. And I think most people know there was no indoor plumbing back in those earlier years. So you can only imagine, not only are you having to probably hear all the activity that's going on over there, but then you're getting those smells that are coming through. And it must have been really tough if you were married to the warden.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so we actually, on our audio tour, it's kind of interesting. So what we wanted to do was kind of have different stories told by different individuals. So one of the stories that we have in that, where that jailer's quarters were, we actually have the son of a woman who was born in there, telling us her story about how she was born inside the historic Scott County Jail. For the kitchen, we've got our mayor, Dennis Jeffers. He's narrating the fact that his mother learned to cook biscuits and gravy there in the kitchen with the jailer's wife. And so, just those interesting tidbits. But, as I said before, there's just so many stories about this jail from a historical standpoint that are so different than anything that I've ever heard before in my life, right? I mean, in our main museum room, we've got the story of 3 different car bombings. I haven't heard of a car bombing, outside of Iraq, right? But we've got stories of car bombings here in Scott County. We've got stories of, sheriffs that were corrupt and, the family lineage and all of this. And so it's interesting when people come through the door and they say, oh, I'm related to so-and-so, you better not talk about this person because the families are still feuding, right? It's a lot of Hatfield and McCoy situation going on here. But otherwise, it's a fascinating building. It's shaped like a little castle. As I said before, you go into each room and each one has just a different historical layer about it. Like I said, this one was the booking room, but at one point it was a cell. And then before that, it was the living room for the jailers and his family. So just a lot of stories like that. It's a very cool story, a very cool jail.
I know the listeners can hear like little bells going. And then people who are watching the video, we've seen the cat jump in every so often here. Has the cat reacted to anything in the jail that seems like it might be paranormal?
Honestly, she has. The first couple of days we had her, she would go, because you can only access the second and third floor by a stairwell in the back. So you've got to walk upstairs. And so the first couple of nights we had her, she would come upstairs with us. And now she refuses to go up to the third floor. We had a team here last weekend and we kind of let her walk up with us, and she stood on that second floor landing and just meow, 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 meow. She just would not go up at all. So I actually had to come down and bring her back downstairs because she was almost like frozen there. We don't think anything has really messed with her down here. And we tell the spirits, don't mess with our cat. She's here. Her name is Sally. Just pretty much leave her alone. So she seemed to be pretty content, but she won't go upstairs to the third floor. And then on the second floor, depending on the day, she gets really mouthy. Sometimes she'll just walk up and just kind of walk around, and other days she'll just sit there and like she's having a conversation with somebody, meow, meow, meow. But otherwise, she seems to be pretty content here.
Do you feel like some of the spirits that are there have gotten to know you and Miranda because you guys are there so often?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we and we get different interaction than a lot of teams do. And we actually have a friend who's a psychic medium, and so she actually did a FaceTime walkthrough with Miranda, and she was telling some different things, and she said, okay, they know you're here. There's some that want it the way it was, and there are others that are really happy with what you're doing because you're telling their stories. We have a lot of articles around the walls of each of the cells, basically newspaper articles. And they highlight different things here that happen in Scott County. And we know that we feel pretty confident there's at least 2 spirits here that are associated with 2 of those stories on the walls. And I think that they're pretty happy that they're acknowledged in those stories. So that's kind of almost like trigger items, if you will. And so we'll be going up, about our day, and we'll hear different voices. I was opening up one Sunday morning. I was on the 3rd floor, which is our maximum security level. And so I was opening some of the windows, and it's about 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and I had a cup of coffee with me. And I said, good morning. Anybody want a cup of coffee? And a man's voice said, open your eyes. It was so loud. And I thought somebody had come in. And so I ran downstairs. Of course, the door was still shut. Nobody had come in. And it was just kind of one of those things that they kind of interacted with us. Miranda and I, there'll be numerous nights where we'll just say, hey, you want to stay and do an investigation? Sure. Yeah, no problem. And we'll go upstairs to our 3rd floor, which is kind of interesting because we have several spirits who really react to religious music. And so you play Amazing Grace because we are literally the buckle of the Bible Belt. I mean, the little tab on a buckle of a Bible belt, I mean, that's us. And so, if you were in the jail on Saturday, your butt was in the pews on Sundays. But so we actually had a sheriff in 1925. He was a Baptist preacher, but he was elected sheriff. And his name was Richard Ellis. And in 1925, he was killed right out here in front of the front door, ambush style. It's still an unsolved murder. And so we do believe his spirit is here. And so when we go upstairs and we play Amazing Grace, specifically the pentatonic version, which is odd, they love the pentatonic version of Amazing Grace. And when
I love it too.
They have good taste, right? It's a great song. And so it was one of those things where we kind of thought that religious music would elicit some response. So one afternoon we just started playing Amazing Grace, and that was the one that popped up first. So we hit play, and our K2s will go off, flashlights. It's unbelievable, the flashlight activity. There's one night where Miranda just put a ring of flashlights around the cell, and they would just light up. Boom, 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 boom. And they really seem to react to smaller groups, but groups that are having fun. So there was one night where Miranda and I had 3 women with us here. They were actually the mayor. One of them was the mayor of the neighboring town, and then the historical director of the neighboring town. And so we were just kind of cutting up and telling jokes, and everything was going off. And it was like they were really interested in interacting with us on that one. And so I do believe that they've gotten to know us. Different things we'll say or do will cause a reaction, which is kind of fun. One of the first pieces of evidence that we captured This was the very first team that was here. They did the investigation and they left. And during investigations, either Miranda or I are on site, right? Just in case something happens. And so we've got a little office over here. And so Miranda was coming from the office and she was coming into the booking room to put some paperwork away. And she heard a man humming. She said it's a very deep, rich hum, and it went on for about 6 seconds, which, as you know, in paranormal world, it's a long time. So it kind of froze her in her tracks. And so you see her, we have a security camera in that room, which is also our gift shop. And so you see her go back into the room to get her bag to leave. And we captured 2 voices on that security camera. The first one said, "There she is." And the second one said, "Not so loud next time," which I think it's intelligent, right? They're saying, well, there she is.
Yeah.
And the second one's like, "Dummy, don't hum so loud next time. She heard you." So that was actually featured on WATE out of Knoxville. They came and did a story on the jail and on the hauntings that we have here. And that EVP was featured. And so that was our very first piece of evidence. And that was when we're like, okay, she's haunted. Yep. We've got activity here.
Excellent. Can't ask for better than that.
No. Well, I mean, like I said, we've captured shadow figures. We got a very compelling shadow figure in our drunk tank. Some friends of ours were investigating a couple weeks ago, and one of our friends, Vicki Norris, who's a great investigator, she was here with Sheila Brown and Sheila Holland and Nikki Wharf Edge, great group of investigators, right? And she the drunk tank is also our working bathroom, right? It's the only one in the building. It's the only one we have here. And it's the one that has no windows, right? It's just the cinder block, the doors, you're in. And so, paranormal investigators, right? We have our voice recorders and we have them going all the time. And so she went into the restroom and she didn't realize she really had her voice recorder going still. But you hear her in the bathroom doing whatever. And so as she's finishing up, the EVP actually blew me away. You hear a man's voice saying, "Stand up, get out, let's go, get out of here." And when she sent it to me, I said, I messaged her and I said, "Vicki, I can't hear the EVP because I hear your husband." And she goes, "My husband wasn't in there." She said, "That voice is the EVP."
Wow.
It blew my mind. I'll send it to you guys. But it absolutely blew my mind. It's a great EVP, and it's something that a jailer would have said to an inmate in that cell. But it was just fascinating. And one of the things that we're also doing here, and I'll kind of shut up about the jail then, but one of the things that we're doing here that is kind of interesting, we've never seen it done anywhere else, is we're actually undertaking a paranormal research study right now. And we have an item or items, we don't even know, that were given to us by a detective. And so the detective is actually in on this research study with us. So he put this item or items in a container and he sealed it. And he's the only person that knows what is in that container. The only thing that he'll tell us is that it's related to a murder and it's related to the jail. And so what we do is we allow, it's not a haunted item. So what we're trying to see is if the jail will tell teams what it is, a date, a name, what cell it was associated with. So we allow teams to come in and perform any experiment that they want with this item, whether it be dowsing rods, spirit box, K2 meters, whatever. The only thing is they can't record it with audio or video because we want to eliminate all bias, right? They have to sign a non-disclosure that when they leave here, they won't talk about it. They won't even tell anybody what the container looks like. And so that eliminates all bias. You don't come in with a preconceived notion of what it is, and you can't tell anybody. So it keeps that secretive aspect of it. So when they agree to participate, we'll take that item to whatever cell they think they want to investigate it in, and we'll move it. We'll put it anywhere you want. You can spend as much time with it as you want. And so then when you're investigating with it, you write down what you feel, what you smell, what you sense, what you hear, anything that is affecting you at that point. You put it in a sealed envelope and you sign it, and you put it in a lockbox. And so at the end of the month, the detective is going to open the lockbox and he's going to go through all of those and see if any team hit on what it was. So again, trying to get the spirits of the jail to tell us, what's in that item.
I love that. That just sounds like a fantastic endeavor. I can't wait to hear how everything turns out.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. We've had a lot of teams participate. Now, there's some that don't want to, and that's fine. I think some people come in and they think it's a test of their abilities, and that's not it at all. We've had some psychics come in and say, "No, I don't want to do that. I think that's a parlor trick," and we're like, it's not, but it's your prerogative not to participate at all. So it's not, like I said, it's not a haunted item. It's just one thing, kind of like Anvil, right? We want to see if the jail is intelligent enough to tell us what it is.
What's cool about you having that location and being there as much as you are is it does give you the opportunity to do a lot of these different experiments and be able to do things over and over. Because when you only get a few hours in a place for like an overnight, you only get a little bit of a taste, and maybe you have a few things that might happen. But when you're there on a constant basis, it really gives you that opportunity. And plus, like you said, occasionally you guys will be like, oh, let's just do a little investigating tonight. So then you're like, oh, you could try something that you normally hadn't done before. So that's just really cool, because it gives us that extra little bit of, even though I said, earlier, we don't really feel like we need to prove anything to anybody, we still would like to have that kind of proof for people who are a little bit more skeptical and stuff, to say, this repeats itself, or,
Right.
We get all this different interaction and then we find something out historically that lends credence to the evidence that we got.
Oh, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And that's really what we wanted to do with this building, right? Both Miranda and I, we want to make it a true paranormal research location, where you can come in. I'll flat out say it's not a big place, right? It's not a big location. It's not a Brushy Mountain. If you want a big penitentiary, go to Brushy Mountain. But this is it's a very intimate little jail that has what I consider a big paranormal punch. And if you come in and you listen and you really legitimately want to feel what's going on here, I think it's willing to tell you that. And so that's what's so cool about it. And so to do something like this paranormal research study, and subsequently we're going to do more in the future. To your point, Diane, that's really what we want to do, right? It's not to prove it to anybody per se, but it's to really expound on the knowledge base that we have, right? Will the jail tell us something? Will the spirits here communicate with us on that level? And, to us, it's absolutely fascinating, because we want to use as best we can the research backgrounds, right? Anybody can go in and say, oh, well, I'm going to sit here and do this, but to really bring a research element into it is a little bit different than anybody else is doing.
Kristy, this has been an amazing conversation. I'd love to end it with you sharing with listeners where they can find out more about you, Soul Sisters Paranormal, and of course, the jail.
All right. Well, if you want to know anything about Soul Sisters Paranormal, you can find us at www.soulsistersparanormal.com. We're also very active on Facebook under Soul Sisters Paranormal, and our YouTube channel is Soul Sisters Paranormal. So all of our videos and investigation videos are there. Our landmark legends and lore are there. And then if you want to reach out to us, just go to that website, www.soulsistersparanormal.com. For the jail, the website is www.historicscottcojail.com, or again on Facebook, it's historicscottcountyjail.com. And we're doing a lot of different things. Like I said, we've got different tours, paranormal investigations you can do. We have motorcycle events, ghost walks. So, again, the history of the jail is really cool in and of itself. So, historicscottcojail.com, or the Historic Scott County Jail on Facebook.
Excellent.